Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Eye on Cricket. I'm joined by Akhila Seneviratne today as we review the first half of the ICC Cricket World Cup 2023. Akhila, it's nice having you on board.
Thank you very much for having me on Ion Cricket. I hope that this episode will give the viewers something a little overall on what has happened so far. So I think we can go off straight with the questions, isn't it?
Perfect. Yes, we can. Just to set up some context
Yeah.
for our viewers, most teams are midway through their campaigns, and it has been a World Cup that has met certain expectations and also surpassed expectations on quite a few fronts. In terms of how it surpassed expectations, at this stage of the tournament, I didn't expect us to have had three, I wouldn't call them upsets, but three shock results involving Netherlands and Afghanistan. Coming into this World Cup, I knew Afghanistan were going to ruffle a few feathers. I knew they were going to be dark horses slash underdogs given these conditions, and it's proven to be the case. I think with the trio of spinners and now a quadruple of spinners with a quartet of spinners rather with Noor Ahmed joining the mix. I think that's a very potent bowling attack. And I think with Ibrahim Zadran and Ramnullah Gurbaz in good form, as long as Afghanistan keep posting challenging totals, they're going to be a force to reckon with. We'll talk about Afghanistan later. Akila, let's quickly cover the injury crisis in the Sri Lankan team and our replacement. Um, we have Matisha Patrana ruled out of the World Cup and Angelo Matthews coming in. Do you see him making his presence felt on Thursday? Do you see him in the 11 on Thursday?
Yeah, actually, before we even started this show, actually yesterday, I think about 9:45 in the night, I happened to put up a poll on Twitter just to see like how people would think Matthews would fit in the team. So uh, I think it's I think given the poll results, like I'm not trying to give an overall opinion on who should be playing where, but I feel like a lot of people are suggesting that Angelo Matthews, with his experience, should play at the number six position, which has been one of the key problems throughout our campaign for like not being able to deliver the finishing touches at the innings, because if I think Sri Lanka in particular, their uh, economy is I think around 5.79 in the death overs for this World Cup, and it's at the very last. Not blaming only the number six batter here. I'm just saying that the number six batter tends to play mostly at this stage, but not having someone stable in that position who can play with a cool head, support the tail in a proper way, and also strike when needed. It has not really been there at the Sri Lankan camp, and I think people are expecting Angelo Matthews to play that same role. If you look at the statistics, which date only up until 2019, because Angelo was not part of the India squad, the tour against India earlier this year. He played in the tour against New Zealand first. So not to go too much into past results, but yes, the pitch has suited him in the past. And I think there is no point in sending him at number seven, because that would be too late. And the top five positions are like almost sealed. Not on a very consistent basis, but at least someone in top five will always perform at least two of them. So I think the number six position in particular is really there. Then it's a case of dropping either Dhananjay De Silva, Charmi Karunaratne to fit Angelo in the in the number six spot. But at the same time, either of those two players do provide the fifth or the sixth bowling fifth bowling option rather. So I think we kind of need to also consider how many overs need to be bowled by the number six batter as well. That is, if we are going with a specialist batsman or an all-rounder. So I think it entirely depends on who else is going to come into the team, because I feel that there should be a minimum of two changes, not only Angelo Matthews coming in, because we will also lose like a bowling opportunity, like in the sense I don't really see Angelo Matthews bowling all 10 overs. At least I think if you target five, then someone else has to bowl a balance five, right? So it's a job between two part-time bowlers. So I think it's gonna be a really big selection headache, especially if you are trying to bring someone completely new into the team. So I think we can probably get a more clearer answer with the next set of questions.
Well said, Akhil. And I think just diving into it a bit more, during the show yesterday with Nicholas, uh,
Yeah,
Merle and I kind of outlined the fact that it's quite strange that our replacement is not a like for like player.
yeah,
Right? We've
yeah,
lost
yeah,
out a lead seamer. We have players like Asita Fernando, Vishwa Fernando back home who've been performing well of late. Maybe not in the same format, but who have good rhythm, who have had a good quarter of overs under their belt in the county championship. I would have liked to have seen one of our reserve pacers coming in, and it seems somewhat strange, even when if you want Matthews to have a swan song, an ideal swan song in the World Cup, right? Because we've known Matthews to not be a finisher over the past few years. That was his role early on. A good 6, 7 years ago, at the peak of his career, before his injury setbacks occurred, he used to be that ideal number six or number seven for Sri Lanka. But as we've seen in Test cricket as of late, um, in the format that he thrives the best in, he's been promoted up the order a tad and plays the anchor role. And now, if we want to strengthen our finishing, I also don't think it's horses for causes there, right? I think there's a bit of a mismatch in terms of what we want as a number six or number seven. And you were absolutely right. And I think during the Australia Netherlands game today as well, there was there was a graphic about how Sri Lanka ranked 10th in terms of our run rate in the 40th to 50th over phase. So it's important that we rectify that. I want to also pose the question on our fifth bowling option. Um, DDS used to be our go-to fifth bowling option alongside Dasun Shanaka, but with Shanaka ruled out, I expect the burden to fall entirely on DDS to fulfill that role. Looking back to the 2019 World Cup game against England, it was his spell for me that changed the tide in our favour. So he has good memories of facing this English batting lineup. Do you expect him to play a significant role tomorrow at the Chinnaswamy?
yeah. I think coming back to the same question on like it entirely depends on whether he actually plays tomorrow. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I think we are stuck with three or I think four all rounders, but we are having vacancies for like three, because don't forget, even they said that even Mahesh Teekshana is also recovered from injury, likely to play. So you can expect him to play uh, in that as well, which probably might mean that Dushan Heyman will be out. So that's coming again, like whether we are going to, and I don't really see the all three of Charmika, Dhananjaya, and Angelo playing in the same team, because except for Dhananjaya, who's a spin bowling all rounder, the other two are uh, like fast bowling all rounders, but Matthews is more towards inclined towards batting, and Chamika is more inclined towards bowling. So I don't really see all three of them playing. But in a hyper, but let's say forget about other players. Like let's say that if Dhananjay is actually playing, I think definitely his bowling will have to like be extremely tight because I'm not saying that they are the exact same opponents, but we have seen a few of the English batters like uh, okay, we'll not take I think some English batters are really good against spin, but how you would see Dhananjaya tend to be of like a very consistent. He bowls in a very consistent line and tends to bowl the same. Like he doesn't offer too much of variations. Maybe he might bowl something straight, just to keep things tight. I'm not expecting him to bowl like all 10 overs, but. Uh, I think it entirely depends on like the situation of the game because you wouldn't necessarily turn to him to pick a wicket. You would expect him to support the bowler. So like I would say that he probably has to bowl at a time when Mahesh Tikshana is bowling from the other end. Um, Rather than having Dhananjay to bowl on the other end, when a fast bowler it's there, like it's not really complementary because earlier it's Vanil Hasaranga and Mahesh Tikshana complementing each other. But because Vanil Hasaranga is not there, Dhananjay De Silva has to play the supportive spin bowler's role because I think Dhananjay in particular like might not pick up as many wickets as much as Mahesh, but I think he would definitely have to play in the or same stage as Tikshana to get the best to get the best use of both of them. And you should also acknowledge that Tikshana has not been in the his best form because he kind of had an injury in the he was struggling a bit in the last game. He was I think economical but wicketless in the others. So it was a pretty, it was a concern. That I think that's it. Again, like Tikshana is someone who benefited of having a good, reliable spin bowling partner on the other end. So I think if we need either bowler to give it their best, they should you know uh, bowling together at the same stage. If that doesn't happen, I don't really see them either of them performing.
Uh, that was immaculate analysis there, because I think if you look at the variations that our spinners possess, Velalage and DDS, with their left-right combination, kind of offer the same thing, trying to hold one end down, keeping it economical from one end, whilst Tikshana has to play the more attacking role, which is also different for Tikshana because in that dynamic that we spoke about with Tikshana and Hasaranga, it's Tikshana who keeps things tight at one end,
Yeah.
with Hasaranga being the attacking counterpart. So it's in terms of role fulfillment, and this is something we highlighted on yesterday's show with Nicholas Brooks as well. It seems that our players are being pushed into the deep end to fulfill roles that they haven't done in national colors before, which is why I shift my focus onto our fast bowlers and think that they'll have to be the ones who do the brunt of the work tomorrow. Because if you look at the Chinnaswamy, it has never assisted spinners. The short dimensions of the ground don't accommodate uh, and aren't appetizing for spinners. But it's the likes of Dilshan Madhushanka and Kasun Rajata who have to come to the fore during that power play tomorrow. As Merle said yesterday, I'm intrigued to see if Kusal Mendes brings on DDS or Tikshana during the power play because Johnny Bairstow, David Malan haven't faced Tikshana much. So it'll be interesting to see if we use a mystery weapon in Tikshana during the power play to just ruffle a few English feathers early on. I see a crucial role for Velalagi tomorrow. I think he needs to come back into the fray. I would be tempted to maybe leave out Dushan Hemanta and bring Velalage, because on that track, on that flaccid track at Chinnaswamy, with those short dimensions, if Dushan Hemanta gets his line wrong and goes too short like he did in that game against Netherlands as well, and even in that warm-up game against Afghanistan, you're going to have Butler, Livingston, Brook taking him to the cleaner. So I think I would bring Velalage back in. Akila, a quick chat about our batting lineup, right? A lot has been said about our top five and how they've been consistent. You referenced that as well. I personally would like to see a change. I'd like to see Kusal Mendis opening the batting. My rationale behind it, and I think our run thus far has proven it. Whenever we've lost a wicket early on in that game against South Africa and Pakistan, Kusal Mendis needs those power play overs to build some momentum in his innings early on, right? And in that game against Australia and even in the game against Netherlands, when he came in, both Pat Cummins and Scott Edwards, brought on their spinners early on, and that was Kusal Mendis' Achilles heel. Would you be tempted to shift things around, or do you stick by the motto of keeping things consistent in terms of what's been going right for us, and that's been our batting?
Yeah, like personally for me, I think yeah, like if we are to put Kusal Mendis as an opener, I mean nothing wrong with the move because Pathum Nissanka and Kusal Mendis are anyway the opening partnership as of recent in T20. So they have pretty good understanding with each other and that kind of thing. But then the question will be like who plays not the number three spot. So I think that would probably mean that Kusal Janit will have to play that. But
I was
uh,
thinking of having KJP and Kusal Mendis opening with Patum at number three, if that's something for the books.
yeah, yeah, okay. Pretty interesting because like if you really look like strike rate wise, like you have two of the most powerful strikers going at the end, but like it's uh, like anything can go wrong because as much as these two players are like really powerful strikers, the chance of getting out for like very rash shots is like really high. Whereas Pathum Nisanka, he has been, I mean, I gotta be honest, like he has been like throwing away his like really good momentum that was built up by pretty much the same shots in the form of catches. But I wouldn't, I would still prefer Pathum Nisanka to play in the opening position because. Um, you would at least want to have some one person with a who is calm and the other aggressive. Both being calm is not going to work out. Both being aggressive, it's a really you call it like high risk high reward kind of situation. Like like what happens if you get out in the first over itself, then that means Pathum Nisanka will be under a lot of pressure because he's not really used to playing at the number three spot, and it's a little bit of like a new responsibility there as well. So yes, we can put even if we put Kusal Mendis as opener. I would still prefer Pathum Nisanka to play the opening position. And Kusal Janit, he does have experience in a bit playing in the number three position or number four. So I would so think that's the better approach. And also given that the T20 partnership because they like both Kusal and Kusal Mendis and Pathum have been playing pretty well. So you have to like also consider that as well. Even though the both of them are right-handers, so slightly contrasting, but they definitely complement each other as batting partners. So I prefer that as an opening partnership if that's the case.
Trust Chris Silverwood to stick to what he's done thus far and just continue with the same combination. Let's now highlight Sadira Samaravikrama's performances. I think he's really stood up for us during tricky patches of play. I think even in that Pakistan game when Kusal Mendis was dismissed and we lost Charit in quick succession, it was important for us for Sadira to see us through. Got a well-deserved century, deserved a century against the Netherlands as well. And it was important that he kind of came into the fray during a tricky chase, a record chase in Lucknow. Um, Sadir has been someone who's been sidelined for a good 5, 6 years and is now back in the mix. I see him as us finally having our successor to Mahela Jayawardene because that number 4 role has been a crucial role for Sri Lanka batsmen, for the Sri Lankan side over the past two decades. It was, we had Aravinda De Silva who cemented his legacy as one of the greatest number 4s going around, and then he passed the baton on to Mahela, who held that for a good decade, and we've been searching for that number 4 player ever since his retirement in 2015, and now we finally have Sadira. Do you see his role? Do you see him as one of the vital cogs in our machine going forward for the remaining, hopefully, 7 games of the World Cup with a semi and final, or do you see him? And how do you rate his performances thus far?
I think for me, I think definitely Sadira is the leading run scorer for Sri Lanka right now. I think he has 200 and I think close to 90, or I'll have a
Yeah,
look at that soon. But yeah, he is the leading run scorer for Sri Lanka right now, and um, he has a century and then a 50. Like he was close enough to get a century. So I mean, I think he has really proven that he can play with responsibility and intent, because sometimes you get too much, carried away in trying to be too responsible, where you eat up a lot of uh, dot balls. And okay, I just to correct myself, is 230 230 runs in 4 matches. So I think that's like uh, really great. Like, that's the thing. The one thing which we see in a lot of Sadire is that his dot ball percentage is relatively low. It's like in the 40s, because he rotates the strike a lot. He goes for the singles, for the twos. Once he's like really comfortable, only he starts, really releasing the pressure through the boundaries. So the first thing he does is like try to, you know hit as less dot balls as possible and just rotate the strike. Like really good. He provides a lot of support to the other uh, partner like us. You need to keep the scoreboard ticking. uh, and also he, not forgetting to mention that I mean, he's also a pretty decent wicket keeper too, because if you remember in the match against Pakistan, when Kusal Mendis went
yeah,
absolutely berserk and got cramped, it was Sadir who kept the wickets.
yeah,
uh, so like you definitely need a backup wicket keeper uh, of his fitness, because I think Kusal Jarit is being spared from the wicket keeping duties due to his shoulder. So considering the wicket keeping duties as well, it's really important to have someone like Sadira in the team, uh, like good read of the ball. But there are times he tends to get a little bit too comfortable, especially against spinners, where he tends to get stumped or he just lunges forward. So uh, if he, but I still believe that, like he's like one of the more consistent players who has been, really delivering what was promised of him in not just the batting aspects as well. uh, yeah, I think that's why he's a really good player, and it's really nice to see him improve himself and, finally regain his position in the team with as a much better player.
A fitting ode to Sadira there by Akhila. And my penultimate question on the Sri Lankan team before we move on is linked to tomorrow's game, of course. I think it is a must-win game for us to keep our campaigns, to keep our hopes of reaching the semi-finals alive. We're up against the defending champions, a team that isn't playing like defending champions, of course, but a team that has a lot of match winners on their day. You're talking about the likes of Joss Butler, Livingston. I see him coming back into the fray. Bairstow, Brook. I see Moeen Ali playing a role as well and being brought back into the side. Uh, but I think when it comes to the bowling department, with Reece Topley being ruled out, Reece Topley was their most consistent and potent weapon over the past 5 or 6 months in ODI cricket. So that is going to be a massive blow for the English setup. But I think the go-to bowler will be Adil Rashid. And as Nicholas said during the show yesterday, if we see off Adil Rashid and see off his spell, that will be crucial for us. We have an Achilles heel against playing leg spinners,
Yeah.
and that's something I've realized lately. Even in that game against Australia, um, it was Adam Zampa's spell that triggered the collapse against Australia as well. We were lucky against Pakistan that Shadab Khan hasn't found his groove yet. He's not in form, and we were quite lucky there. But I think looking ahead to tomorrow's game, we have an experienced campaigner in Adil Rashid, and it'll be important for us to see them out, or to see him out rather. Akila, your thoughts on tomorrow's game? I know we go in as underdogs, but do you see another surprise result tomorrow?
Yeah, I feel like Sri Lanka. I mean, it can go either way, but I feel like Sri Lanka have the better chance. Uh, okay, so I think Chinnaswamy is supposed to, offer a lot of runs given it's a small boundary, right? So I feel like Sri Lanka would benefit bowling first. Uh, I'll just think it this way. Now, I assume there's gonna be a more chaser friendly target given how other teams have performed, because I don't really see Sri Lanka as a team who are going to, you know, hammer 400 in the first innings. But given, like, that's the thing, it comes back when you come to the net run rate. Like, it's difficult to improve a net run rate if you're batting first because you have to bowl next. You rather do that when chasing. So I think given the net run rate issue, I would I think it would be best if England bat first, because anyway they would be on a very attacking mindset, and most importantly use the spinners the right way. Like, if you can use the spinners early on, which the opening batters are probably not too accustomed to, maybe get I think about 2 or 3 wickets in the power play itself. I think that should be the target. Like, you bowl first, and you have to get at least 2 or 3 wickets in the power play itself. Otherwise, the whole effort of having to bowl first would go waste. So early upset. You were saying
I like
something?
I like Akila's confidence there, talking about net run rates in our game
Yeah, yeah.
against.
That's the. I'm just thinking in terms of like what would I do, because like it's easier to do the calculation when you have a set target, so you kind of want to do the opposite.
Yeah.
uh then because and also, yeah, like anything is like it's either hit or miss. Like, sometimes you kind of have to let uh you know rather than bowling to hit the wicket, you should, I think, the Sri Lankan bowler should kind of try to keep things away, try to keep it more towards the offside, which kind of limits their power hitting capability, because the England middle order, they do have a lot of firepower in them. And I think most importantly, restrict them for score like less than 320. I mean, it's not entirely impossible as long as you get early wickets. But that is like the most ideal situation is to restrict them for less than 320, because anyway our players, like we saw them, uh, you know uh, we in the first two games, like it's not that they can't play, it's like they can, but uh, the tendency of losing quick wickets after a good partnership is like really there. So we really need to uh, reduce the number of wickets within those run intervals. Like you can't, like you have to like keep on building like 20-30 run partner 20-30 run partnerships, and then see, okay, how am I going to hit from here, because we have intent but we are showing it too early. So
Yep.
that's the trick with other teams, like they don't really necessarily show their attacking intent from the start itself. They will delay it as possible, get the bowling team a bit too comfortable with their bowling and field setting, and then once they start launching their attack, uh, they kind of catch the bowling team off. They catch them off by surprise. So uh, I think target is to restrict England for less than 320, preferably not more than that, because
Yep.
if they do any like, and if the spinners in particular don't bowl at the absolute best, chasing 350 can be a challenge. So that's a very ideal situation if Sri Lanka bowls first and then chases a target less than 320.
I liked Akhila's confidence early on. I think England too will be doing the same calculations based on net run rate because they've had that relatively easy fixtures out of the way now. They've played against Bangladesh, lost to Afghanistan. Sri Lanka on paper wouldn't be a fancy side. Ahead of this World Cup, when the English sat down and planned their World Cup campaign. And they've got some tough fixtures ahead, including matches against India, Australia, Pakistan. So it's important. I'm pretty sure that they too will keep an eye out on net run rate. As a Sri Lankan fan, I just want us to grab the 2 points tomorrow and stay alive
Yeah.
the competition. I think that will be a huge confidence boost for us looking ahead to our game against Afghanistan, which will also be a crucial game next Monday. I'm going to now shift our attention away from the Sri Lankan team as we slowly wrap up this show and speak about a few other teams, a few honorary mentions to individuals as well who've impressed us during the course of this World Cup. And I'll start off with the hosts. Uh, Coming into the tournament, they were outright favorites, a stacked team on paper. They had a few scares and health scares with Shubman Gill being ruled out of their first couple of games, but he's come back right into the mix. And he's been short of runs, but I'm pretty sure he'll regain his form going forward. But they haven't had to rely on youngsters like Shubman to perform because their stalwarts. Tagged as Roko with Rohit and Virat Kohli have stepped up to the fray and delivered throughout their campaign thus far. This will potentially be Rohit Sharma's last World Cup and even Virat Kohli's, depending on how long he can go on for at this rate. But it's been a brilliant, brilliant run by India thus far. They're outright favourites for a reason. They have their top order sorted. You have finishers like Hardik Pandya and Ravindra Jadeja in the fray who can finish off innings, giving the much needed impetus and momentum that's required. And they have a stacked bowling lineup. There's no weakness to kind of pinpoint. You have Bumrah, Siraj. I know those two names ring alarm bells for Sri Lankan fans after what they did in the Asia Cup final. But you have a very potent new ball combination, and then you have the likes of Mohammad Shami, Jadeja, and Kuldeep Yadav, who see out their 50 overs. And Kuldeep Yadav, for me, is the main threat in the middle overs and has reinvigorated his career over the course of the past 7-8 months. So I see India potentially even going all the way. It's going to be tough to stop them. I know they have a bit of a tendency to choke in the semis and finals. We will see if that happens on this occasion. But India have looked really good. Akila, any other teams that come to mind when you look at teams that have exceeded slash met expectations?
I mean, I think, yeah, of course, India is brilliant. I mean, for so far, like such a like really good team, especially when chasing, because we have seen they might lose few wickets early on, collapse, but they'll recover. Kohli scores 100. That's the usual scenes we see. It's really nice to it's so many lessons to learn from that, like how to handle pressure and then deliver in cricket's grandest stage. But I was more inclined towards South Africa because, my goodness, wouldn't any team would love to have a middle order like that? I mean, for not just the middle order, even their top order is just fantastic. If you look at how many centuries have been scored by their top six batters, it's just uh, amazing. I'm not all the top six batters have scored hundreds because Dickok scored three, I think. Yeah, three.
Yeah, Peacock scored three. You have
Steve
Markram.
Anderson, well, one. Um, then
Markram
we
scored
have,
one against us, and then you have
yeah,
Klaasen being Klaasen.
Klassen with, I think, Klassen with one. Uh,
Yeah,
so like that's just like so many different batters, really stepping up when it's needed, and they're like, except for the match against Netherlands, they were like super consistent in scoring really fast. And again, that is like the fact, the reason why they score really fast is that they don't lose too many wickets inside the first 40 overs. And once they do, they go, yeah, the economy from the death overs is like 12. So that's 100, more than 120 runs scored in the last 10 overs, and not forgetting the kind of role that players like Marco Jansen, uh, David Miller have been played, because you don't really like, that's the thing, like you don't really see players like Marco Jansen, you know, being as a batter, but still there's so much to like, there's so much from him. Like it's only like if Sri Lanka had a player with that kind of
a finisher like
power.
that.
Of
Yeah,
course, height does have a play here. Being a tall player, he is able to like generate so much of power uh,
yeah.
within him. And yeah, the fact that they have been like such a threatening batting unit in particular is just really amazing. And then because the scores are so high, it easily puts a lot of pressure on the teams who are chasing.
Yeah.
That's the thing, like in my like South Africa's key towards their key has mostly been batting first and scoring like really a lot of runs. So that puts the chasing pressure on the other team. I wouldn't necessarily say the most lethal bowling unit, but because of the pressure of having to, you know, score runs, it easily forces batters to play a couple of rash shots and get themselves out. So uh, yeah, I think for me, really, it's a very totally different South African team we have seen in the most recent past, and especially in ICC tournaments. So I really hope that they keep up this momentum towards the semi-final and you know go on
Yeah.
beyond that.
South Africa have
Otherwise,
never reached South Africa have never reached a World Cup final. We can go back to 1999 and the way
yeah,
Lance Kluivert and Alan Donald kind of choked at the very end. You can look back at 2003 with Mark Boucher having DLS miscalculations that cost South Africa a place in the semi-finals. You can look back to 2011 where they had a middling target to chase down against New Zealand in Mirpur in Dhaka, and kind of fumbled the opportunity there. in Bangladesh as well. To go forward 4 years to 2015 and that semi-final against New Zealand, where unfortunately the weather gods weren't on their side on the day, and then you had Grant Elliott having his one of brilliant performance in that semi-final, seeing New Zealand over the line. So South Africa have been unlucky, and they've been like the serial chokers when it comes to World Cups and ICC events. But you highlighted a very good point. We haven't seen South Africa successful was chasing, and that has been their Achilles heel. In most of the instances that I've referenced, it occurred whilst they were chasing. Uh, Once their qualification is sealed to the semis, I'd like to see South Africa test themselves, even on good batting conditions, and put the other side into bat to see how they fare chasing. Because over the course of this over the course of this World Cup thus far, we haven't seen a lot of dew on these Indian grounds. We haven't seen pitchers breaking down slash wearing down as the game progresses, and it's been quite symmetric in terms of conditions on during both innings. So I'd like to see South Africa test themselves, and I think that is the only box that they need to tick in terms of
Yeah.
chasing and seeing how their bowlers do under pressure in the death because of their stellar totals that they pose in the first innings. Their bowlers haven't really been under pressure, except for Kusal Mendis's cameo in that game against Sri Lanka. I haven't seen their bowlers being fully tested. And on a couple of Indian YouTube shows that I was on prior to the World Cup, I never had South Africa as a semi-finalist because I thought they'd really missed the services of Anrik Nortje. But I think the likes of Gerald Coetzee, Marco Jansen, Rabada have all stepped up. And yesterday, I really like the look of Lizard Williams. He seems to be quite similar to Vernon Philander, actually, if you recall. The same kind of action, the same kind of run up, generates the same amount of movement with the ball. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how South Africa fare. Just before we wrap up, two other teams to mention here. I will take Afghanistan, and I'll leave Akhila with the closing remarks with the team of his choice. The reason I'm going to still mention Afghanistan here is I still see them as underdogs. As of right now, and even the points table depicts this, they have a slightly better chance than Sri Lanka of reaching the semi-finals. But more importantly, I don't see too many weaknesses in that Afghanistan lineup. Over the past decade, ever since they came into prominence in international cricket, we've always spoken wonders about their bowling lineup and their brilliant spinners. But over the course of the past year or two, under Jonathan Trott's leadership, their batting lineup has come to the fray. You have Ibrahim Zadran, who is one of the most technically sound openers I've come across. Ramnullah Gurbaz on his day can be a match winner. He's a product of the LPL. I'll take great pride in saying that. I remember the very first LPL game between Candy Tuskers and it was called Colombo Stars back then. We had Ramnullah Gurbaz opening the batting with Kusal Janit Pereira for Candy Tuskers. So I'd like to call him a product of the LPL. But you look down into the middle order as well. Hashmatullah Shahidi, Najibullah Zadran, if he's fit and back in the frame. We saw what Mohammad Nabi did to us in the Asia Cup, nearly knocking us out in the group stage. It's going to be interesting to see how Afghanistan fare. And even with their finishers, Rashid Khan and Mujib are brilliant finishers as well with the bat. So if these pitchers continue to slow down a tad, it'll be interesting to see how Afghanistan do deep into the tournament. And I have them as my underdogs. And Akila, I know we said we'll keep this down to less than 45 minutes, so I'll
Yeah.
leave it to you to wrap up with a team of your choice.
Yeah, I think this wouldn't be complete if this show does not talk about New Zealand, because I think New Zealand have been obviously the most I think more than South Africa, an unlucky team having reached the semis two times in a row and things not really going in their favor. But the fact that they are, even their replacement players are like really playing up to the level that they expected is like really promising. Yes, they were unlucky against India, but that shouldn't. I don't think that necessarily will come to haunt them too much, because the semi-final is like only for the top four places. So, and it a defeat, I think, in my opinion, right now will should only upset a team if they are like on the verge of losing that semi-final spot, or when they're actually in the knockout stage of the game. I mean, you can't always win. It's like a natural thing where you, like there's even no matter like, I think another completely different example. Like everybody thought that I like a team like Ireland, who were the world number one, had a really good unbeaten streak, beat South Africa in the Rugby World Cup, but crashed in the quarterfinals. So no matter like it's this thing where like, even the most successful teams, they will tend to like lose badly in the most crucial stage. So I think the New Zealand should take this defeat against India as a blessing in disguise, and hopefully, if they are to meet India again in the knockouts or maybe the final, I think they would have a better plan to counter against them. And I think, New Zealand all round, especially when it comes to like players like Rachin Ravindra, ever since he was promoted to opener, has been a brilliant all rounder. Mitchell Sadner, Trent Boult, silently taking wickets, and they are in the top of the table. Devon Conway, Glenn Phillips, really hammering when it's needed. So yes, they are missing on Kane Williamson, but I don't think that has haunted them too much, and that's the hallmark of a quality team. So I hope that they, also keep playing the same cricket they do towards the knockout stage, and I think they are uh, another team that has a really good chance of reaching all the way to the finals.
Well said. Well said, Akhila. And yeah, just before we wrap up, Australia on the brink of a massive victory,
Yeah.
which will really boost their net run rate considerably. Sri Lanka will see a slight promotion from 8th to 7th on the table as a result of this. But we're looking forward to going up the right way after tomorrow's game. Akhila, thanks for joining us. We look forward to having you on many, many more shows with the Eye on Cricket. And Akhila will be back as we hopefully maybe review the England v Sri Lanka game, hopefully after another victory. So thanks, Akhila. And thanks everyone for tuning in. Feel free to follow us on the Eye on Cricket and follow Akhila on Twitter at Akhila Seni97. Thanks, Akhila.
Thank you very much for having me on board, and it's really nice to, uh, you know, be part of this neat tournament review, and hopefully we can talk about better things in the near future.
Thanks, Akhila. Thank you. Cheers, guys. Good
Take care.
night.
Good night.